This video is going to be discussing constraints and the freedom that they can lead to within your life and art. In the spirit of that, I'm going to start it off by doing a random scribble on this canvas while closing my eyes and letting that scribble dictate what I create for the rest of this video. All right, here we go. That's going to be rough. It could be worse. Okay, wait, let's do one more. Wait, or is that kind of going into the whole constraint thing if I get to decide that? Yeah, I guess I can. I guess that'd kind of be cheating, right? The biggest issue with this is that it's like over in a far corner, but outside of that, this is pretty, I can work with this for sure. Yeah, so recently I was having a conversation with two friends. We were talking about habits, and we were talking about freedom, and we were talking about all these things, right? Very similar vein to actually what I was discussing, oh man, I want to say it was 2 episodes ago, where I was talking about habits and that you can build a system in your life. And my friend said a very common thing when it comes to discussing such a topic, that like, it's kind of super restricting to your freedom to give yourself a schedule that you have to do every day of your own volition, right? To be like, let's say you have a habit that is, I'm going to go on a 45-minute run every day, and I'm going to read 3 books, 30 pages a day of 3 books or whatever. Like, you know, you add all these things on and eventually you end up kind of in a different trap of your own creation. They're saying like, it is antithetical to sort of like being, I guess, like being an autonomous person, to have all these things that you have to do, right? And this is a very common thing. The reason I do want to come here and talk about this is because this is not the first time I've heard this said. I've heard this said everywhere from on the internet to in my personal life. And, you know, people I know have often echoed this sentiment. It's not a new sentiment whatsoever, right? I disagree, obviously. I think that constraints can be the most productive thing when you use them right. The biggest thing here, and the most, I guess, prescient point to make right up front, is that there is a huge difference between a cage of your own design and a cage that somebody else placed on you. When we think of constraints, we think of your boss. We think of people going, you have to do this at this time, and it leads to you having a far worse life than you would if you didn't have to do these things, right? This is our conception of constraints, and there is a huge difference, and a difference I think, honestly, even for me as I grew as an individual and, you know, went from being a dumb kid to being like what I would half refer to as a functioning adult, learning what it means to place constraints on your life, to develop habits, and, you know, the difference between having something that somebody tells you to do and something that you do because you love it or because you want to be doing it, right? These are things that do take a while to figure out, and that is perhaps the biggest roadblock in the way for a lot of people figuring it out, is that this conception of constraints is something that somebody else places on you to limit your own freedoms, right? And I think that another distinction needs to be made on top of that. There are no 2 types of freedom, right? Or no, there are no 2 types of freedom that are the same, is what I'm trying to say there. Their freedom takes many different shapes across many different areas in your life, right? The freedom to, you know, you have a freedom right now, let's say you're chilling in your house or whatever, you're chilling in your apartment maybe, you have a freedom right now to go get a bunch of Doritos and just like couch rot for the rest of the day and just like not do anything. And that's, you know, you have a freedom to do that. It doesn't mean that it's a good thing though. Not all freedom is something that should be done or should be exercised or should be, you know, it's good. It's not all good. It's good to have these freedoms, it's not always good to exercise them. And that's a distinction that needs to be made. Bad is, of course, when you limit freedoms in anything, right? And that's what people think constraints do. But having these, I would ask the question of this, right? If you are not fully making your own decisions, if you're not deciding what you do as you go about through your day, and you're maybe at the whims of just like your impulse or something like that, are you truly free, or are you I feel like it's super dramatic to say this, but are you something of like a slave to yourself then, to your own impulses? Because I mean, I know I've at various points in my life, like not been the best with food, let's say, right? When I was let's say, waking up at like 12 and being like, oh my God, I'm so hungry, let's go eat ramen and like chips or whatever, like, you know, like a super unhealthy diet. I wouldn't call that freedom. I'd call that being, you know, I knew that I'd feel terrible after I did that. I was just like a slave to the impulse of like, oh, good, you know, salty snack right now. Like that's, I don't know if I'd call that freedom. I wouldn't at all. At no stretch of the imagination would I ever say like, oh, I was super free back then, right? Freedom is the ability to control your own whole mind and body and choosing what to do based off of that control, right? That's what freedom really looks like. Freedom is not by any stretch of the imagination, you know, just going about the motions, right? Having the ability to do anything. There's also something that I do struggle with, you know, still, and as much as I do believe everything I'm saying, there's like an element of it that I still do struggle with of like, what does true freedom look like? Because, you know, you could make the argument that true freedom is to be the guy on the, to like, if you get rid of every conception you have, if you're super free in all aspects of life, it's really easy to end up as the guy on the side of the road with the sign screaming like, you know, the end is nigh, as you, are just like, I don't know, I don't want to use the term just fully insane, but it's something of that, right? I don't think that that's a free thing to do, even though me thinking that that's not free is a conception of my own creation as well, right? There's an element to that I still do struggle with, like what is the line of wanting individual personal freedoms versus understanding there is a society at large that, like, you know, I am still a part of, right? These things are tough points. However, these tough points are still no dissuasion from establishing your own freedom. It's a privilege to be in a cage of your own creation rather than somebody else's. Is a big thing, I think. And I think, like, as I say this, right, because the impulse I've always had my whole life is like, well, what if you don't build that cage? Because there's a truth that when you take all these habits on, when you do all these things, you are building your own cage, right? And I think, like, the response to that is like, okay, why would I do that? Why don't I just be completely free? You know, and then I guess there's the angle that I kind of took for the beginning of this video that, okay, then you're a slave to your impulses. And that's true for most people. I mean, unless you're just extremely lucky and, you know, you don't have, like, any compulsions to do anything that's, like, unhealthy. I'm not talking about compulsions for, like, bad things. Just compulsions of, like, oh, I'm just gonna be a lazy bum. Like, that's, you know, unless you're very lucky in that regard. But even then, you're a slave to your own compulsions that could be productive or good, right? So I think that the larger question is it possible to avoid building some sort of cage, right? Is there such thing as a completely free life? Or is it, this is a pretentious thing I'm about to do, but it is one of my favorite quotes ever to invoke Rousseau, man is born free and covered in chains all over. Right? Is that kind of the angle that this ends up taking? Is that the shape of the conversation then? That's something I genuinely don't know. I can talk about discovering new types of freedom though, right? When you I'm going to use this painting as an example here because art is a very direct example of this, although this also reflects upon life, right? When you do something like this painting where you go like, I'm going to do a scribble and I'm just going to see what I can make out of it. You're developing a new technique by doing that, whether you realize it or not, right? Like I'm painting this whole thing upside down right now. I'm gonna flip it over at the end of the video and understanding like, okay, I can get a grasp on shadow in that point. That's a new skill, and with new skill comes new freedom because that's greater autonomy over something, right? So the same can be developed through your life. When you build something that you have to cope with on your own, right? That's a new cage, let's say. Let's use that dramatic term. When you do that, let's say you're like, I have to run every day for 45 minutes, understanding like, okay, I've gotten so good that I can run 45 minutes and it doesn't feel like anything. Now I can listen to a podcast while I do it. Or now I can, let's say you're like, I can't run 45 minutes, I'm gonna walk and then run. Like developing those skills give you new types of freedom, right? There's no such thing as a cage that doesn't teach you how to live in a new way. And I think that when it comes to, developing all these new habits, right? Or again, I can't think of any other way to put it. I kind of hate that I'm putting in this dramatic light, but when it comes to, as we're saying here, building a cage of your own design, I do think there's a pretty great argument to be made that it's resistance training for being free, right? And then I guess maybe we could make the argument too that if you have full autonomy over yourself after developing skills through this way, that you could eventually be without all these things and still have full autonomy over yourself, right? And then I guess that is the most free. Could we say that? I don't know. I guess that's a part of life that I would not have gotten to yet. I could not say that at all. As you guys can see, I still have various points around this conversation that I myself think about and I wouldn't say take issue with, but dwell on in regards, right? So I mean, like, I don't think I can answer that fully, but I do know that placing constraints, especially in art, right? Like I did the color block series, and that was probably the most constraints I've directly placed on myself on camera in this series, right? I mean, this episode's an extreme example. This can be a one-off thing. Like that series was extremely constrained. I gave myself 3 colors to use, and I was like, I need to learn how to make interesting paintings through that. I think the lesson I learned was that the paintings are not that interesting when you do that, if I'm being honest with ourselves, but that was the constraint I placed upon myself, and that's what I tried to do through that series, right? I think through that, though, I learned more about texture, I learned more about composition, and those are skills that I took. I mean, I'm invoking them here, right? This texture I'm doing on this rock, where I kind of roll the brush around, that's something I learned in the last couple paintings of the color block series, right? That constraint led to this new thing, and now I have the freedom, the autonomy that is increased through that to better render this than it would. I mean, I'm not saying this looks great, to be honest here. I've never started a rock doing just a huge black smear, so that, like, this doesn't look good, but it would look even worse if I did not have that technique, right? If there weren't the little grains of white in there, it wouldn't even, it barely looks like a rock, but it would look even less like a rock, right? All these things are true, and this is an increase in autonomy, thus freedom that you get from the past constraints you once had. I guess the question that comes from that then is, are these constraints, are these cages of constraint that you build temporary vessels to get to a further freedom, or are they the value in and of themselves, that you don't need to ever get rid of these things, that they just increase your freedom by virtue of existing? Or is the point of life to be 100% free and just build your own cage because you need to do that? I don't know. I don't know when I get there, but I can say for a fact that the idea of building yourself these habits, or as we're dramatically invoking your cage, is not restricting of freedoms. Let's flip over this painting now. I want to see how this looks. Okay, so it's bad, yeah. I will say though, this was cool. Like, I enjoyed doing this. I thought it was cool, and yeah. I think it does work well with the idea of this episode, because I did indeed learn a new technique, that of learning to paint something, or painting something upside down. So a constraint did lead to what could one day be considered a freedom if I ever actually use that skill to make a good painting. Or I guess it's freeing to make a bad painting. I don't know. I hate discussing freedom. It's so like it's like a word that is, the second you add it into a sentence, the sentence is too vapid to mean anything, and there's too many holes that you can poke in it. Yeah, but this is the painting. Go check it out on the TikTok and the Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This is Paint Dog episode 310. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.